This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle TV, the world's first streaming service dedicated to filmmakers, screenwriters, and content creators. Learn more at indiefilmhustle.tv. I'd like to welcome to the show Joe Alexandre, man. How you doing, Joe?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for reaching out, man. You reached out with a which normally I would never in a million years read. A lengthy email pitching to get on the show. I was
Story.
I mean, it was War and Peace, man. But then, but in the first few sentences, we have a mutual friend, Joe Carnahan, and then I was like, okay, let me just give Joe a call, and that was, and then once I called up Joe, this guy just emailed me the Bible. Should I have him on the show? And Joe's like, oh no, Joe's freaking awesome. You should have him on the show. I'm like, okay, let me go back and read everything. And then I had to kind of break down. I'm like, dude, let's pigeon. Let's get this down to a place where we can have you on the show for something. But it was great. So, and then as I did more and more research into what you're doing, what you've done, I was like, oh, this will be a great conversation. So we're going to talk about your career, and also how shorts have played a really big part of that, how you've generated revenue with shorts. You were using a lot of Filmtrepreneur methodology before I ever wrote the book. You know, you were hustling hard because hustle recognizes hustle. You've been around the business for a little bit. So how did you get started in the business?
Got started, really, it was like that lengthy email. It was a long, circuitous route. I grew up back east from Long Island, New York originally. Came from kind of an upper middle class background. My parents went to Georgetown. I went to Marquette University. But I was a jock. I was a baller. I was not the kid with the Super 8 camera. You know what I mean? It was not, it was, people my dad would joke. It's like, when I expressed interest in the business, he's like, what do we know about movies? We know how to go to a movie. We don't know anything about movies. It was kind of like the Upper West Side kids, or, like Christine Vachon going to Brown and studying semiotics. I didn't have an in. I didn't know anybody that was really in the business. And like a lot of us, a couple things happened. One of the big things, of course, was Rodriguez, right? And then the book that I don't know if as many people talk about. It's just a book by Rick Schmidt.
The used car prices. Of course, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I spoke on a panel with Rick years ago. He's an interesting fellow, without question.
Yeah.
That's a great book, yeah.
It is, and he talks with some guys like John Jost, who's kind of I follow him on Facebook. He's kind of a legendary, kind of a, gruff older dude, but was making really interesting art house kind of Criterion Channel type films with himself. It was the crew, Mm-hmm. And so, it was like, oh, maybe I had always harbored, and this is, people don't realize, like, when I was at Marquette, man, they had, like, you couldn't just go. There were video stores up. Blockbuster hadn't really gotten traction. There were local video stores. And then, you would see like an art house, like an Eduardi, Wrath of God, Herzog, or you would see in a case, but you couldn't just access any film you wanted. Mm-hmm. So if I was interested in, like, I would see, Stanley Kubrick, like, I'd have to read the book and then wait till one semester they had a special screening of A Clockwork Orange. Mm-hmm. It's cool sometimes, but saw that theatrically, blew my mind. And then I would read up on Kubrick or read up on Fellini, Satyricon, but it wasn't easy to just go grab it.
It was extremely difficult.
Right, and that made it almost more intriguing when you finally do get to see the film, and you finally, you read about it, the making of, and all these guys, and Scorsese, and and obviously when Goodfellas came out, I was in Milwaukee, and this will tie in to the real casino, but working in some mob joints, kind of living that life and seeing Goodfellas and realizing, like, dude, this is real, man. Like, this guy has, The Godfather's great, but it's fantasy. It's like, dude, stop it. There's not a wise guy. There is not a mob boss who went to Harvard like Michael. You understand what I mean? Just stop it. This is Shakespeare. This is Lear. And that's great, right? But if you know that world, it has nothing to do with reality. Like, a lot of these wise guys tried to fashion themselves all over Brando and all this stuff. But really, you realize quickly that Marty just like, wow, he nails it, you know? And then that was, oh, this is interesting. And then Oliver Stone's JFK was another film. And then the year later, successive years, then it's like, oh, El Mariachi, look at what this guy did, you know? And then, you find out he shot wedding videos and all that. So really, I was really, the only thing I knew about anything even semi-related was I did print work in Chicago. You know, my dad was in the retail business. You know, one of the advertising people saw a picture of me, said, "Yeah, you know, we got to fly in these guys from New York." You know, we'll just and so gradually, I guess I did some in front of camera stuff, but it wasn't until I saw that there was a pathway that it was accessible to make a film that I finally started. And took my first, ended up in St. Louis, took a little junior college class on filmmaking, and then they shot Super 8, and we actually edited it on the actual Super 8 delay. It was like a little Mineola with the tape. You know, you would make the cuts and tape it, you know.
Oh, no, I know.
Do all that stuff. It was awesome. And transfer it to 3/4, went on like voiceover and music. And I was like, wow, man. Yeah, and then right from there, right from this kind of mediocre short, just made my first feature. Just said, F it, I'm going to do it. High 8, Super 8, 16, reversal, color negative. It's it kind of has, it's on Fandor, it's called Psychotropic Overload. It's kind of a bizarre Todd Haynesian thriller. It's not, I wouldn't, you know, you probably really need to light up, you know, some hybrid to really enjoy that one. You know, you need to be under the influence.
I mean, Robert, I've spoken about Robert on the show ad nauseum. He was one of those guys for me as well. And for a whole generation. I mean, once everyone saw Mariachi, everyone was like, wait a minute, this can be done. And then it was just movie after movie. It was Slacker and Mariachi and Clerks and Brothers McMullen and all of those. And then even when you got to Joe with Blood Guts in the late 90s, you just started seeing this energy of like, oh, we can get into the business. So I completely understand. But one thing that you did with your short film, The Real Casino, is you actually made money with it. So tell me about Real Casino and how you generated money with a short at a time. Shorts are always difficult to make money with. And I was able to generate 6 figures with my short in 2005.
Right. I read about that.
So,
a lot. How did he do it? It's 15. It's brilliant.
It was brilliant. So I always love giving stories about shorts power, because I started my career off of a short. Really, I did commercials and music videos and stuff, but really that short was the thing that kind of launched me into opening up a post house and all the other things I was able to do with it. So how did you get Real Casino started, and then how did you generate revenue with it?
It's the first thing that was really critical was getting the launch from John and Janet Pearson. You know, they had a show. They were ending their producer's rep career. I had just done another feature. It was kind of a hybrid doc feature about a struggling filmmaker who loses his mind and goes killing.
As we all do.
Yeah, and I sent that to John Pearson, not really knowing where he was in the business, but I had read Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes, the books where he talks about all these films, and his address was on there. So I'm like, oh, I sent him a film had a little trailer of my first feature. And he's like, look, I'm kind of out of that business now, but I have this show split screen. Initially, it was going to be on the Sundance Channel, but then I don't know. There was, I guess it was when Redford still controlled it or whatever. There was an issue. And then he went to IFC. And he's like, look, come up with a short concept and pitch it for the show. This is like I think the first season was just coming out, so I watched the show. And at that time, I was up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and one of the filmmakers up there who had known John as well he did a film called Finding the Real Fargo. And it was about whether or not Fargo had really, it was very nebulous that any of this. It says it's loosely based on a true story, but they're like, dude, none of this stuff ever happened. But the Coen brothers are from, Minneapolis and that whole deal. So it kind of spurred something, because here it was, I had a connection to these guys, in Milwaukee and Chicago when I was in college at Marquette University. This big trial was going on. One of the main mob bosses was a guy named Frank Balistreri. He was one of the guys who was involved in this scam of the Stardust and the Fremont, right? And it's Milwaukee, and the main bosses are in Chicago, and the trial is taking place in Kansas City. But it's like, dude, the movie is far away. Nobody knows what is it? It's just some wise guys on trial. It doesn't mean anything to me at the time, until years later. And then I end up in Chicago and get to know, a lot of sordid characters. And I read the Pileggi book, and I realize, oh, dude, I know a lot of these people, directly or indirectly. And I pitched John a few things and nothing stuck. And so this I kind of had in my back pocket. It wasn't my first choice, because it was a dicey, these were real wise guys.
You don't have to tell me about wise guys. You don't have to tell me about wise guys, sir.
Right. And so I was like, I don't know. You know what? Let's do it. Pitched him the idea. He's like, bingo. There. And, before he knew it, he sent me a check. And I was trying to get a little more money, and he's like, no, this is it. Just make it for that. Let's go. So, I go down to Chicago and Milwaukee. I interview a bunch of people, and basically he only wants a 7-minute segment. I cut something longer because I figured, come on, man. It's Marty Scorsese. It's a 3-hour movie. You want me to boil this down to 7 minutes? So I cut a 12-minute version. No. 7 minutes. Okay, 7-minute version. It comes out on split screen sometime like late or middle of 98. And then I cut my own 30-minute version. I start sending that around the festivals. And I get into a couple, but I didn't understand that whole short thing. And like, dude, when you make a long short,
you're done.
Yeah, it's
hard. It's hard. Sorry.
It's hard, right? But, I keep plugging away, and I get it to the PBS affiliate in Chicago, and they see the 30-minute version, and they're like, WTTW, they have a thing called Image Union, where they had a lot of different local related type stories. Listen, get rid of the Milwaukee angle, make it about 25 minutes, we'll buy it, right? So this is my first sale. This is almost a year after. I got a little bit of money on this company in Burbank, Big Film Shorts. They sell it on DVD. Nothing, not even worth mentioning. I got $1,000, right? That's my first real thing. And then now I'm still doing the festival circuit. Dallas Video Festival wants to show up. Like, they want a shorter version online because they're going to do part of it online. And it's like, I don't want to send them 14-minute version has some music issues. So now I cut, or the 12-minute version rather. So now I cut a 14-minute version, right? This is, I think, my 4th version, right? So the point is, dude, flexibility, hustle. A lot of filmmakers would have just said, oh, hey, I had my moment in the sun. I'm on IFC, done, right? No.
Kept going.
It's like, right, got it. There's something here. There's traction. There's this. People are watching this thing. I got to keep going, That 14-minute version eventually ended up with a company called Hypnotic, and they gave me an advance. They put it online. It was in the days of like Atom Film, Film.
Yeah.
Hypnotic was owned by Universal, and then they sold it to Air Canada, Air France, Delta. I started seeing some real money quarterly. Within this period for a couple of years, they had it. Several $1,000s. Then they were bought by Wellspring, which was owned by Steve Bannon, and then eventually it ended up with Shorts International. And this 14, and this was kind of clever. I had so many different versions. I would do a contract that was exclusive to them, but it was just a 14-minute version. So then I had a longer version that I sold to a company that they put out an official DVD with these different versions, right? It was not a very good deal. I never saw any money from them, but I had a DVD with artwork, right? So now I could just take that and sell that myself, right? On Amazon and CreateSpace and early, like, 05, 06-ish. This is several years after. Now I've got another revenue stream that just keeps coming.
So let me stop you there for a second. I want to kind of dive deep dive in a couple of these elements. Okay, so you have a documentary, and I love that you're cutting multiple versions of this thing and selling multiple versions and licensing multiple versions of this thing. Did you ever get any pushback for that?
No, here was the beauty of it. It was, I just had a little bit, it was basically the real guys. It was fair use stills and stuff like that. I kept, there was a little bit of footage. And then my cover which happened right around the same time, probably around 02, 03, I sold it to TF1 in France. And TF1 was a co-producer at Casino. They co-financed Casino. So they put out, and they co-financed many American films, right? Canal Plus, kind of thing. So they had the right. So they bought my film to put on a 3-disc DVD set. So whenever this came up, I just show my TF1 contract. It's like, no, I have that right. They co-finance the film. Everybody be like, oh, okay, no problem. Sounds good.
Jesus. So what I also love about this is you're using one of the very core principles of a Filmtrepreneur method is leveraging an existing audience with your product, which I mean, you're literally not only hitting two demographics. One, fans of the movie Casino, and two, fans of mob movies and the real crime and all that kind of stuff. So that's you leverage that brilliantly, and now you've been able to continue to do. And to this day, you're still generating revenue with that thing. Didn't you just license it somewhere else?
Yeah, several places. I just, Shaked, right?
Of course, Shaked, friend of the show, Shaked Burnson.
I think I'm talking with him. YouTube just put it on. It's on Zumo TV, a lot of these fast channels. It's still to this day, from the very time that I always tried Prime, right? I got on either through CreateSpace or then when it was Video Direct. I ended up getting, years later, cut a final kind of 40-minute version, the longest version of it, and put that on TVOD. Along with that, the other was a 24-minute version. I always tried Prime.
How many
There's
versions?
6 different versions. There's 6.
And you can there's 7, there's 14, there's 24, there's 30, there's 40. I'm like, did you have a 23 and a 24-minute version? Like, how many versions?
Right. The 7-minute version's on Criterion Channel on the original thing. So it's on all these. Well, eventually what happened on Amazon is they forced you to kind of, because that 24-minute version was on TVOD and physical for years and years and years. So then when I cut this kind of final 40-minute version, I had to kind of choose, and that's redundant, so it became the 40-minute version. But from basically 06 to now, and I don't know why, I can't explain it. It's just TVOD, 100 plus, we're talking close to 20 grand every month, in and out, 150 to 200 a month, 150, 160, sometimes less, but then it would be made up every single month for almost 15 years, 14 years. TVOD. Wow. I tried Prime for 3 months. It didn't do anything on Prime. Go back to TVOD, I'd get like 20, 30, 40 bucks. I mean, it would get more minutes viewed and all that, but it was like, go back to Prime, it would take a month, it would still be low. I'd be back at my 100, 150, 160, 80, 90, 170, TVOD the whole time. And I never drove traffic. It was just one of those things where, again, dude, it followed the money followed the hustle. Where's the audience? But okay, if this is where they're going, then I'm going to go this way, right?
And
It was just putting it. And again, I see so many filmmakers that do something that does have an audience, right? Especially when I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul, there was a guy there who was just leaving. He had done a feature. They raised $1 million. He got a Disney fellowship, and it was a really nice film. It had some real nice names in it, and you can't find that film today.
Mm-hmm.
What did they raised $1 million? They put it out. It got in the LA Film Festival. And I can't tell you how many filmmakers. It's like they do a couple things in a festival. It's here, it's there. Never see it again. On to the next thing. And it's like
I've worked on films like this in post-production that I would see them, they spend $1 million and a half, and then I go back years later to look for it. It's nowhere. It is gone. Right. They're just gone. And filmmakers don't understand that you can continue to generate. Like, I still make money with my short film from 2005. Right. I still make money with my other short films that I did, my animated short, my action short that I did like 11 years ago. I still generate revenue with all these things. It's just, you got to keep hustling. Got to keep pushing it out there. I mean, I can't cut 45 versions of my shorts because they're narrative shorts. I mean, that is actually a genius move, my friend. I do applaud you on the 35 versions that you license to different people. I gotta say that's amazing. I've never heard that one before. I truly have never heard. I'm like, really?
Well, everybody, again, it was like, for me, it was, I wanted to give it the whole full treatment, but they're like, no, we need something shorter. No, you need to cut this. You need to do that. No.
So there you go. Why not? You you had the flexibility to customize per buyer.
Right.
So if they needed 7 minutes like John did, it's 7 minutes. But then the other people are like, okay, get the Milwaukee stuff out, we'll buy it. Okay, great. So you had the ability to do stuff like that. You have that flexibility in docs much more than you do in narrative. Right. Narrative is what it is. But in the doc world, I've always said, man, the money's in docs, man. You can make. In my book, I talk heavily about documentarians who built multi-million-dollar businesses around one doc if they hit the right niche.
Right.
Did you sell any ancillary products off this? Like,
I didn't really. I really should have. I never really did the T-shirt thing, or it was all the physical, the DVDs, but I probably should have done a T-shirt, but I didn't feel that it kind of segues into the next doc, which was about a club, that was a T-shirt crowd.
Before we get to that, how did this short lead you to Joe Carnahan? That
was interesting because that came kind of early. It was really IFC. It was the IFC connection, and that out of all this stuff, thank you for bringing it. This this is why I'm good at this, dude. I'll let you do it, Oliver Stone. He's given us all this great stuff, but you want to bring it back to John Daly. Get back to John Daly. It's why you're really good at this, dude.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, seriously. I listen to a lot of people. It's that was the most important thing, dude. I got a 6-figure script out of this thing because of it, right?
Because of the short.
And Joe at the time was kind of Blood Guts was with Next Wave Films. That was a division of IFC. They were getting money to take. Following was one of the films. They'd done several others. And, like filmmakers are, it's like it was hearing a lot of blowback, like, oh, this new film, it's just a rip off of Tarantino, and I've been reading, quite a bit about it, and finally saw it. I caught up with it when they gave it the shittiest release. It really should have done much better, but I think it was Lionsgate. They just dumped it, gave it an X-Lax release, and saw it on DVD, and I was like, and I had met Peter Broderick, who ran Next Wave at
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because you just said X-Lax release. I have
Yeah.
never heard the term
Yeah.
X-Lax release.
Yeah.
I'm stealing that. It is brilliant.
Yeah, right.
Let's
You
move
know what I
on.
mean? It's just like,
It's just all
no
you need to know.
care. No,
X-Lax
yeah.
release.
Just like, and I'm just like, dude, I'm sorry. It is by far, I'm not denigrating it. It blows Following Away.
They're just different films.
The dialogue,
Yeah, it's
the
different
action,
films. Sure.
all these things. And then he imbues it with like there's something there. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's not
without
just a
question.
mindless exercise. He's kind of commenting on those films. And then he's putting something in there meaningful. It's interesting at the end. I was just like, dude, this is great.
And for everyone listening, you're talking about Joe's movie Blood, Guts, Bullets, and Octane. When that came out in 98, 99, if I'm not mistaken.
98.
Yeah,
right,
around there.
right.
All right, so you met Peter Broderick, who's also a friend of the show.
Right. So, talked to him and I just said, hey, I finally caught up with Blood Guts. I was talking to their people because I had a couple of films I was trying to get the finishing funds for. And I just said, hey, man, I just saw Blood Guts and like all these people were shitting all over. And I was like, this is a great film. Like, this is really well done. He forwarded that to Joe and Joe reached out to me. Said, yeah, I was having a bad day. And then I got this, and it was kind of cool to read. And we just formed a friendship. And I was ending up going out. My then girlfriend at the time was a vet, and she graduated because we were up in Minnesota, University of Minnesota. Ended up going to Sacramento. Joe lived right there. I was just right in his area. Carmichael was real close. And so got to know him pretty well. And it's when he was going back and forth to LA, writing. Narc. He was actually, I remember talking to him when he was out in the Hamptons. He was working with the O'Connor brothers. He was writing Pride and Glory, and that's what Gavin O'Connor directed. That's about their dad who's a New York City cop. And so I was seeing all this from a kind of like a front line view, like, wow, man, and it took a while to get Narc off the ground, and dude, that's a whole story.
Oh no, he told us the story. Yeah, it's insanity.
Just hearing, running out of money while they're shooting, and this, that, and you know what, this is why, I don't know, sometimes I wish I would have been right there co-pilot. It's like, I kind of feel like he got sucked in, I don't know if it's really my story to tell, but I'm going to just tell it, and you can edit it out if you want. But when they were doing Ticker, and I think it's instructive because it relates to everything we're talking about. When they were finding a post for Ticker, he was up in Lucas's company, and they were talking to and our mutual friend Leon, who was a producer, that was telling me this story, and they were talking to Rick McCallum, who was the second in command up there to the whole Star Wars thing. He's like, Joe, these guys are going to lick your ass. They're going to stick their nose so far up it. It's going to feel really good. But if you're smart, stay up here and make your own stuff. Don't go for all that big stuff. Oh, no. And it was just like, first thing out of the bat, it was a walk among the tombstones. It was Jersey Films. And, it's funny because our friend Leon was saying, when Joe was trying to get Narc made, Jersey Film, they kind of dicks about it. I was like, oh, this is just an episode of NYPD Blue. Why should we do this? It's like, well, dude, this is one of the best screenplays I've ever read. I mean, it's really Narc. The screenplay is unbelievable.
Oh, absolutely.
Why would you get involved with these guys who shit on, but because it's money and it's this and it's that. And then it was, MI3 and then and, in our case, the film I was writing for him was about this kid who was a drug dealer up in Blaine, Washington. It's right on the border of British Columbia. And it was kind of like, if you could imagine taking the world of City of God and transposing it into like Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was it. The guy was
70, he
was a teenager, right? When I went to research it up there was a big bust. Some kid had 60 pounds in his locker. There was like 100-yard tunnel underneath. There were like, I had LA plates and I had all this research, and they just saw not LA plates, California plates. They pulled me over just because they see this like thick thing of research on this kid about all this drug related stuff. He's like, buddy, I hope you don't come back with any, and it was like, but there was Killing Pablo, right? There was Killing the big $70 million beast, in the back. And, I just always felt like it is a bit who he is, because he's an action kind of guy, but it's also, I think it's kind of like the ocean. It pointed him in this direction, kind of, instead of maybe like I could see him being like a PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson.
Man,
you know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you what, man. I told Joe this. He is easily one of the most underrated writers in Hollywood today. I think he's a brilliant writer, and he's a brilliant filmmaker. And I think if they could ever just give him the keys to the effing car and let him drive the way he needs to drive it, he's going to shock everybody, honestly, because he's always had someone sticking their hands in, moving things around. Like, it's always that. Right. If he could just get like a Netflix deal or something where they just go, here, Joe, here's the money, go make your movie, get it back to us when you're ready. I'm waiting
White
for
Jazz.
that. White Jazz needs to be made. White Jazz needs to be made. Needs to be made.
That looked like the one that could have been that kind of follow, like, especially when he's at his best is when there's that special, like Narc has that special meaning of like a guy who's just trying to protect his daughter-in-law or whatever. The Gray is really just, the Gray is the best case study on leadership, because he leads him in the completely wrong direction, but he took charge, right?
Yeah.
He took charge. It's that thing, Band of Brothers. It doesn't matter if you lead him in the wrong, but you got to lead, right? You got, and it's just that scene with his buddy Frank Grillo at the end where he just comes to peace. Like, there's all these, this is what makes the intense action, all that stuff, but always when he's at his best is he has those quiet moments.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Taking the shower with a little infant, right? He's in the emotion moment.
But that's the emotion.
Right.
That's the emotion. The best action movies have emotion to it. Like, you care about the character. John McClane, Riggs, these kind of characters that are, epic characters who you just care about. And with all this insane action and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But
funny you mentioned
real
quick on and this is why I feel like 18 was good. He put, what makes Die Hard so great? Hans, Alan Rickman. I feel like he needed that Alan Rickman, and whatever. That's a whole different story. But you're right. That's again, Hollywood kind of getting their hands in it and pushing it another direction. And you get all these meddlers, and
but that's the game. It's the game that we all, everyone plays in Hollywood. There's very few that can beat James Cameron, or Spielberg or Nolan, or that they could just come in and just, they have the keys. And like Kubrick before them. Kubrick was one of those guys as well. But anyway, but I just wanted to bring Joe into it because this short film led to a relationship with Joe Carnahan. It gave you a gig writing a script, and it all started off of a short, which is a lot of times filmmakers don't understand. It's not only just what the short can generate by itself, it's what it can generate outside of it. I've said, and I think I said it in my book, that my short film not only generated 6 figures in sales, but also generated 7 figures in the course of the next 15 years because I launched my post-production company on the back of that. And people kept coming to me because of that short for years. So I got so many other revenue generation off of that because of all the cool, whatever I did action-wise and visual effects-wise in that short.
Think about Jim Cummins, right? Thunder Road. I'll be blunt. I thought that to win Sundance, whatever, okay, it's not the point. But, okay, so he can't monetize that because of the song with Springsteen. He just puts it up free. Hey, Bruce, can you just let me put it just for free? But what happens? Oh, Vimeo. Hey, do 4. We'll give you money to do 4 single take films. The one I think is best is the one where it's like the guy who's the Department of Corrections who's doing CPR and you realize, he's being transferred to prison or whatever, Then it's flipped into a feature. Now he's done another feature. Now he's done how many? Dude, it's all based on that short. All of it.
So it's
and he wasn't even able to monetize that short, but what came as a
right,
result.
and that's always the dream with short films. The short film is always like, you're going to see my short film and you're going to give me a shot at a feature, you're going to give me a screenwriting gig, or it's going to move my career forward. That's what shorts have always kind of been. But what we're talking about here is, yes, there's always the upside potential, like with any investment. In real estate or in the stock market or in gold bullion or whatever you're investing in, there's always upside. But there should be fundamentals to at least recover the investment in that product, which is the budget of the film. And if you can continue to generate film money like you have with that short, you were able to get the upside and you were able to cover your nut, essentially. Right. And that's how filmmakers need to think with shorts. They need to think about, how am I going to cover my nut? And great, if Steven Spielberg sees it and wants to hire me for the next project, all the better. But you can't plan on that lottery ticket, because with you getting that 6-figure deal with Joe to write a screenplay, that's a lottery ticket. That's not that. Right. That's a scratch off. That's a scratch. Robert Rodriguez won the lottery. That's a scratch off. Right. It's a really nice scratch off.
Absolutely. That's why I really love listening to Jason Horton, when he talks about that. My strategy is a different kind of, more a boutique-y kind of thing. He's cranking them out like Walmart, right? Like he's just, 5 features in a week,
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah. Like you were talking.
Oh, no, he pops them out like water.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
He just is like, I need 400 revenue streams making $20 a day. I'm good, right. As opposed to 3 making $500 a day, and that's his, right. And it works. If it works for him, all the better.
And it's this kind of specific genre kind of thing, which is he's tying directly.
Niche. Yeah, he goes into niche. And
right. For me, my approach was not necessarily always conscious, but what interested me, again, more of kind of setting up a little bit of a boutique on Montana Avenue rather than, what I mean? But still something that I know I'm interested in. And because look, man, we've all made those films. It's like, I really liked this one thing I wrote with a buddy. We took a feature, it was a cross-dressing hitman. It was a 7-minute piece. It was first 12, cut it down. A buddy of mine, a commercial director, put some Avid magic on it, and there were a few sound issues. I loved it. Nothing. Had to move on. Just, move on. Didn't cost very much. Have to, right, but when you're really, the other thing too, when we get into the discussion of Warriors of the Discotheque, the short giving me the canary in the coal mine, is there a feature here? And how can I market to that, right? How can I use what I'm learning on this? I'm engaging with the audience. How much bigger is the audience? Is this a ancillary? Is this a,
so let's talk about Warriors of the Discotheque. Talk about what the story, how did you get involved with that short, and then what did it lead to? So
this happened to be in Dallas. My parents moved down there and split up, and my mom stayed. And when I was, still a kid, I kind of snuck into this place, the Star Club. It was Philippe Stark's first design in the United States. And being from Miami, all the Ian Schrager hotels, Stark designed all those. He designed the Mondrian, that became his kind of thing. And so there was that, speaking of boutique, there's that cachet right there, Philippe Stark, right? It's called the Star Club. In addition, it happened to be, and people debate this, but it's really not. I mean, the truth is, it was ground zero for the popularization of ecstasy, right? There was a guy. I mean, it was ecstasy was actually isolated by Merck Pharmaceutical in 1914. It languished. This dude in the Bay Area, Alexander Shulgin, used it. It became kind of a gay club drug in the late 70s in New York City. But really, there was a seminarian, former priest guy named Michael Clegg, who kind of was popularizing it. And then when Star Club opened, it was on the cover of Life magazine. I mean, they basically made ecstasy illegal because of what was going on in Stark. in 1985. Lloyd Benson was a senator, and H.W. Bush was vice president. And, all these kids that went to SMU were putting on dinner and hanging on with with Joey Arias and Drag Race, whatever.
RuPaul.
Was hanging out there. I mean, the music, the second kind of British invasion, Dead or Alive, all these elements were there. And it was like, off of when I was writing this thing for Carnahan, there was a guy who was based in Dallas who was going to do a feature on it. And I kind of approached him. He had a film that had been in Sundance, and we went back and forth. We ended up becoming rivals. He ended up making a documentary as well. But I realized, look, why dick around with a feature script? Let's just start off and make a short. I did a little teaser, 5-minute teaser. Within a week, I had 10,000. This is back in like 09, 08, 10,000 views on YouTube. And then boom. Like, that's, it wasn't a cat video, dude. It's hard to take something of legit content and quickly, right? It's not this little 30-second thing. I'm like, oh, there's an audience there, right? Do the short, do it like a 19-minute short. You see a trend here? Second version. So.
And we had the 16.5-minute short.
Go to USA Dallas, which, by the way, with your interview with Rick Linklater, Slacker, USA was the first festival that he showed Slacker at in Dallas.
Nice.
He was talking about Katie. Yeah, so it was great, dude. Went down there. Like, they were Academy accredited then. Holly Shorts, I think, stole their accreditation. I'm pretty sure. Not 100%. I ended up getting the Holly Shorts later. I know Daniel Soldier. Yeah, great guy. So, they flew me down there and a whole bit, put me up. The theater was packed right off the bat. It's like, oh my God, DVDs, T-shirts, posters. Yeah, didn't have any of that prepared, but it was right here. Oh, look at this. Look at what I could do, And as soon as my short was over, more than half the theater cleared out. It was really sad because the film after was a short documentary, kind of a longish short documentary on the legendary commercial director, Joe Settlemeyer. He's the Where's the Beef guy. He's a legend. Great comedic director. They did a thing about that. And then, long story short, that experience, I ended up doing Holly Shorts. I ended up doing quite a few different festivals, but I learned right there, here's my audience. This is where, when I come back, I'm going to do a feature and I'm going to be prepared this time, because I probably easily made $1,000 in cash just having,
stuff that
that's
night.
What feature. Yep.
So then you parlayed the short into a feature film right away. And
it took actually I was trying to raise money, but because of this rival short, they had the original owner investor who was a big corporate CEO of this company. I shouldn't get into detail on that. Anyway, they had him and some other guys. They were able to go interview Philippe. They raised $200K. Film never came out. $200K. And so, for lack of a better term, it kind of cock-blocked me from getting money. I ended up having to use some screenwriting money from another thing to eventually go down there and shot that ended to like a year and a half later. Did most of the shooting down there and then had it ready for. I had a date before I had the finished film, which was like the end of April 2011, USA. And it's funny because it still needed some work. I knew people just wanted to like the film. If I reached a certain modicum, a certain level of quality, that's all I needed. This was not, having been down there, it was not a market fest. It was not a distribution fest. It was not like there were all these people who are going to snatch it up. Yeah, I'm going to meet Malcolm McDowell, which I did for them. Yeah, I'm going to meet, there's tribute, right? You're going to meet great people. But there aren't a lot of people who are going to buy your film. So it was strictly a marketing opportunity. And I focused on that. I put a lot of my energy on the T-shirt, the poster, the CD, the DVDs ready to go. I sold it early, got to a friend and he's like, dude, you should spend a little more time on the film. And I'm like, dude, I'll be able to fix that later.
And there's multiple versions coming.
Right. Yeah.
There's multiple. Don't you worry, sir. I'm going to have 16 more versions of this damn thing. I just need to get something out now, sir. But it's true. It's true. So you were already.
There's only a couple more.
Don't worry about it. There'll be at least 6, 7 more of these. Don't worry about that, sir. So you walked in like off the short. You saw that there was an audience there, and you're like, wait a minute, I can leverage this. You have a hungry niche audience that wants to see this film, and you're like, I have an audience. Let me feed that audience, and not only feed them with the movie, but with all these other products like it. But you did that. You figured that out early on off the short, off that YouTube little 4-minute piece or 5-minute piece that you uploaded. Right, you're like, wait a minute, there's something here. And then you tapped into that world. And then how have you still been generating revenue with that film?
Oh, dude. Yeah. That's the one that, I'm doing with Shockhead. Film Hub. Went through multiple distributors, Micro Cinema International. They went out of business. Then I, did the Prime thing again. I mean, it was doing pretty well via Film Hub because they were getting a better revenue. And by the way, when I say Prime, I was getting the full 17.
Stop it.
And still wasn't making that much money. I was still doing way better on TVOD.
That's insane.
It doesn't make sense, but I experimented with it multiple times, and another one again. It always seemed to be doing better on TVOD, except for AVOD on Tubi, and obviously in that situation, much better, on those, But again, it's this thing. I read another book too that was very helpful. This guy named John Reese, he wrote this book called Think Outside the Box Office, which is really interesting, and really talks about the stuff like a lot of it's that old school that you harp on over and over and over. This thing about where you go, I'm gonna just show it at Tribeca, and then I'm gonna get it. Like, no, dude.
That's world's gone. It's not 1992 anymore, man. It's not.
Bring all your merch. Use this. This is an opportunity, And everybody, I'm gonna focus mainly in, and it's gonna be blah blah blah. It's like, no. This is your opportunity, and I wouldn't have known that on my own, really, had I not done this short first. That was a trial, and also, budget-wise, these guys who made the rival doc spent that money. They did a Kickstarter alone, 40-something grand for the music rights alone. They were flying blind. They didn't know what was out there. Their strategy was, Sundance, Double Decon, Tribeca, all the big boys. That didn't happen. There was but they didn't know. Outside of Dallas, unfortunately, even though it has complete national and international implications and has done well, it was really, I had to taper my budget and everything around the fact that it was not a slam dunk outside this core audience. And this core audience was in New York City. It was in San Francisco. It was in LA, Dallas. It was in Europe. People, right? But dude, it's not like it was not as big as some people thought it was.
But the thing is,
it reflected that.
That's another thing I like to point out is that you're like, okay, I'm not going to spend $200,000 on this because the audience is not going to reflect that. And as much as I might think it is, it's not. You had a niche product and a niche audience. Now it wasn't wide, but it was deep. So you had a lot of people who were interested, but at a certain price point, it makes sense. Right. And that's what a lot of filmmakers, and I hope everyone listening understands that, you've got to justify the budget that you're spending. Just because you want it to be $1 million doesn't mean that you'll ever have a chance to get that money back. Yeah. I consult all the time and coach, and when I get some of these filmmakers in, they'll come in and they'll go, I just made a movie. It's a drama, period piece, no stars, and we spent 1.5. And and it looked good. And it's like, and we hired this DP who's beautiful, and I looked at it and I'm like, oh, it looks nice. You'll never make your money back, ever, ever. And then they're running around AFM.
You may not make any money.
No, ever. No, nothing. And the thing is,
People don't realize that. Like, you say that, but I don't think they're filmed. They never make any money.
We are the only business in the world that could spend $1 million on a product that never generates any revenue or has no intrinsic value to it. Mm-hmm. If you spend $1 million on a home, you've got the home. You spend $1 million on a car, you've got a car. It might be an overpriced car, but you still have something that you could recoup your money. There are no parts of the film that you can chisel off and sell like that, in the same way that there's no product. If the marketplace says no. So a film like the example I just gave you, it's $1 million. They'll never make a dime. Now, if they would have made that more niche, maybe change genres, and it might be a little bit different. But that movie justified a $50,000 budget.
Right. And the other thing too that's really important is in the research. When you're doing these names, you need someone like. And our definition of a name is really not like that. Some kid who's on a 23-year-old kid who's on a show has 500,000 Instagram followers, right? He wants that's in there, but you have to research that too, right? And I think a lot of people aren't doing that homework. There's a whole level of that where you think, well, I never even heard of so-and-so. Yeah, but he's got 1.5 million followers. Oh, these people jump right on that, right? And the whole thing. So there's so much you have to do.
Oh my God. Listen, man, I know guys who are making 6 figures a month that you have never heard of, who are just killing it. And they have 1 million followers, 1.5 million followers. Some of them even have like 300,000 or 400,000. And they're still off of that niche. They're killing it. So, and also and people listening with shorts, think also about shorts as a YouTube channel. You can continuously make more and more content, eventually monetize it, sell product. If you're within a niche, the riches are in the niches, as both those films that we've used as examples here have done. Joe, we could keep talking for a while, man. I want to give you a couple more questions I ask all my guests. Yeah. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into this business?
Oh man, there's so many things. The one is, I think that Ismail Gomez said, "Don't take it personally." Right? Don't take it personally. You got to keep going. And you know what? When I got into the Writers Guild, there were 3 people there in like an introductory talk. 2 of the guys they had written films you'd heard of, with people, they had been there, they were a little older. There was a woman that was a TV writer. And it was so on. She's like, you know what? Find another way to have residual income. I got my real estate license. You know what? I had to wait 8 months to 10 months to get paid on a thing because I took that initial money. I got a real estate. I don't sweat it. I gotta, there are stories when I joined the guild. There are guys who were sitting at the lobby at the finance office at Fox, screaming, "I'm not going to leave here to dude, when you get these deals, sometimes, you're talking months, dude, you're talking years when you're getting this. I mean, it drags at a glacial pace. Having something, it's hard to create when you are under stress, financial stress.
Amen, brother. Amen. Amen.
Coming to LA, dude. I use Minnesota as an example. They have a great theater thing, the Schubert theaters, Chicago, you go to St. Louis, Dallas. There are these towns that have, you're in one, obviously, Austin. I mean, that's gotten rid of, the secret's out there. But I'm just saying, you don't have, I wouldn't come to LA unless I had 30 grand in the bank and already maybe had a manager or already had a lot of stuff. I came out here with my eyes wide open. I already been in a couple of festivals. I already had, and dude, it was 5 times harder than I thought. Mm-hmm. And you have all these people who start out wanting to do this, and then they're a manager at a catering company, and they're bitter, and they're this and that because they didn't have time to develop. Right? They didn't understand, dude, you got to be out every single night at every single event, talking to every single person you can. And then at the same time, you have to be creating a body of work. It is hard to get stuff together in LA. You can get actors easily, but to put it all together, there's so many other places in the country where it's easier.
Absolutely. And, me being in LA for 13 years, I can speak firsthand about this. LA is wonderful. It's great, and you will be able to grow at a much faster rate than you will in smaller markets. I mean, the learning curve in LA is so much faster because you're dealing with just people who have more experience than you. I came from a small market in Miami and then went to LA, and I learned, like I've said before, the first year in LA was like 5 years in Miami. Like but after a certain point, you need to figure out, like, is it worth for me to stay here anymore, or have I established myself enough? Could I go back, bring my overhead down, use that extra money that I was generating? How am I generating my money? Is my money being generated by the city of Los Angeles? Or can I generate an online business? Or am I creating residual income other ways that I don't have to live in LA anymore? All that kind of stuff. But I agree with you 110%. When I went to LA, I think you probably have heard this story that I bought out a Hollywood Video and I had four or five giant boxes of DVDs. And I was like, well, if I can't get a job, I'll sell these. And I was lucky, but I also was coming into LA not with like a dream. I was coming into LA with skills. I was a post guy. I was a post guy.
Well established, dude. I mean, what year did you come here?
I went to LA in 2008. I'd already probably had 10 years under my belt. But it was 10 years in Miami.
2 or 3 years after Broken, right? Which was
exactly 2005.
Yeah, everybody heard of Broken, man. I mean, it was a legend. It was. If you were in the business and you were following these things, you're like, you knew of this film. But what I'm saying, that's kind of what you needed. And even then, it was like tough. Right?
Of course, it was impossible. Like after Broken, man, I did the water bottle tour. I got called by Oscar-winning producers. I mean, I've gone through the gambit so many damn times I can't even tell you.
Right.
But I showed up. I was like, I just need to be an editor. I need to be a colorist. I need to just be able to make a living. And then once I established myself that way, within I think 4 months, I was at a Holly Shorts party because I knew Daniel and Theo because I was in their first festival with Broken.
I remember it.
Yeah.
I remember it because it's thin of space and all it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we really need another festival, right?
Right. Exactly. So I met somebody there, and 4 months later I shot another short, which was kind of a nightmare, but I got something else on my plate to show people. I'm like, oh, look, I've just shot this thing with a known face that people would recognize and some other actors. And then I gathered enough, nuts to put together my $50,000 ridiculous short film without thinking of anything that we've discussed in this episode. Just going, hey, this is the thing. Everyone's going to recognize my genius now. And it didn't work out that way. But I still generate revenue with that film. And that film got me a lot of gigs as a director, doing commercials and music videos and things like that. So it easily paid itself off over the years. But it didn't do what it intended to do, which was to do a feature and all this other stuff that I wanted to do with it. But hey, it's not easy, man. This whole thing is not easy. Everyone listening, it sucks. It's hard. And I love what Rick Linklater said when I asked him the question. And I go, "What's some advice?" And he's like, "Whatever you think it's going to take twice as long, and it's going to be twice as hard." And I was like, "Oh, that's such great, because it's true. It's absolutely true."
Maybe 3 times.
Sometimes 3 times, depending on the project.
Right.
Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
Oh, God. It's so simple, but yeah, probably patience.
That's mine, yeah.
It's a big one. I mean, it just, and also, it's funny. Have you seen Val?
Oh my God. Right? Don't even get me started on Val, because Val has a very special place in my heart. For other reasons, but that movie is haunting.
Right.
It's dreamlike. It's I just sat there, I was crying. I was just tearful of what he was going through, because I'm such a fan of Al's. I'm just such a fan of Al's.
I was at the Chateau Marmont. My sister was there.
Mm-hmm.
She loved it, and he was kind of holding court at the pool. And to be honest, he was a little bit of it. It was not one of his better days, you know. And I didn't know anything about him. And in the first 10 minutes of when he realized his brother died, who was like his creative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you don't know people's story, man. You know, it's like the Kevin Spacey thing, swimming with sharks, you know. But it's like, my wife got, she had a flat tire. Someone shot her in the face. He's like, oh, I didn't know. Yo, buddy didn't know something, right? It's like, you don't know, like, oh, so-and-so's, you don't know what people are going through, right? You don't know what through. It relates to that thing. It's like, you might draw an opinion at that. It's like, you got to just kind of just hold back, pause, but don't take it personally. Don't get bent. Just keep going, keep doing what you can do. And it's so, I think we get everything so pretty, because it's a bitter business. It engenders a lot of bitterness in this guy, F him, and that guy,
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a big thing, to keep it.
Now, and what are 3 of your favorite films of all time?
Oh, dude. Goodfellas is one. I'm gonna cheat. Andrei Tarkovsky's Andrei Rublev in this Russian film called Come and See, one of the greatest films about World War II. It's brilliant. And I'm going to throw in Barry Lyndon, Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, Stanley.
I got to put that in there.
Stanley. Don't get me started on Stanley. I could talk hours about Stanley.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming.
Can I throw one more thing in there?
Yeah,
about
go for
film worker? Did you see the documentary? I met Leon Vitali at the Kubrick exhibit in Napoleon Barry Lyndon room.
Yeah.
And when you watch Filmmaker, this is really important for filmmakers to understand. It is huge. It is exactly what we've been talking about. It's what you've been talking about. And he spends almost all his time curating his work, right? This thing yes, he's producing, but it's not like you just, we had a new kid. Oh, it's 3 months old. Oh, throw it away. Like, dude, 40 years later, they're still, okay, well, what are the specs on the 2001 he's like, Leon Vitali was spending almost all his time making sure the ad was right, making sure the print was right, making sure the transfer was right? I mean, and that's something filmmakers need to keep in mind. Dude, you have something that is going to be out there forever. If there's something there, keep nurturing it. Keep honing it. Right?
I'll tell you my Leon story. I actually, at Holly Shorts, saw a 35 print of Full Metal Jacket. And, and Leon Vitali sat behind me. And I'm watching Full Metal Jacket with Leon Vitali sitting behind me. And then afterwards I stand up, I'm like, I just have, this is around the time Filmmaker came out. I hadn't seen it yet, but I'm like, I can't wait to see your documentary. He's like, oh, thank you. He was such a pleasant man. Oh,
He's like an old hippie.
Oh my God. He's an old British hippie. He's great.
Right.
Now, where can people look up your work and get a hold of you and all that stuff?
You can go to jfafilms.com. You can go on one of the shorts I didn't mention, the early inauguration. You can hit that on Shorts TV sometimes. The Real Casinos on Zumo TV, Plex. The short, if you have Criterion Channel, it's on the split screen, one of those seasons.
The 7-minute version.
Amazon, of course. You can find all those things on Amazon. So.
And all the versions are out there of all these movies. Joe, man, it has been a pleasure talking to you, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Keep it up.